Next, I'm going to tell you all the details of the chilling case that has caused national shock, and I believe even international. The cruel murder of little Camila from Taxco. This is in Guerrero, in Mexico. An innocent girl whose life was taken away in the most infamous way possible. Thinking she would spend a pleasant afternoon with her friend, referring to Camila, she went to her house as on many other occasions. However, this time there were different plans for her. A deprivation of freedom to demand her ransom and subsequently her murder. The woman was singled out as the main culprit for this. She was accused of having used her youngest daughter as a decoy to easily lure her victim. Ana Rosa saw in her the opportunity to make a few thousand pesos, but she couldn't foresee everything that would go wrong. For her part, the mother of the deceased girl deeply regretted having trusted her neighbor, as she could never have imagined what she was capable of doing, especially since the girls had been maintaining a nice friendship for some time, thanks to which they used to meet at each other's house frequently. I simply trust her friend. It's not the first time she's gone to play with her. It's not the first time she's done it. The girl even came to my house many times. My little girl loved her. My little girl's only sin was loving that girl and her mom too much, because even the mom loved her. Unfortunately, Margarita Ortega, the mother of the victim, had put her full trust in the wrong people, as her neighbor, Ana Rosa Diaz Aguilar, also known as Alestrada, was not at all what she seemed. With her role as a mother and grandmother, she had no problem winning the trust of the women in the neighborhood, who, carefree, let their children play in the street like all children their age. Thus, Camilita and the other little 10-year-old girl began to see each other more and more, until the mothers of both began to receive them each at their respective homes. But the question here is, how could anyone distrust a woman who has a small daughter of the same age? That was precisely the mask that hid the true face of Ana Rosa for a long time. Far from being a responsible mother and a dedicated grandmother, she possessed deep within her the temperament of a killer. A ruthless woman capable of using her entire family to get easy money. Thanks to posts from her 3 different Facebook accounts, a small part of her story could be reconstructed, which tells how since 2019, she had to face life as a single mother, as her husband had suddenly passed away, and whose last goodbye appeared in several posts on Alestrada's account. Interestingly, the man's death was not due to any natural cause, disease, or accident. In fact, this is where the lifestyle of this family begins to trigger the first alerts of how dangerous it was. But at that moment, no one saw beyond the pain of a widow with her 4 children to support, to raise, and educate. But the truth was that Ana had chosen as a husband and father of her children a person with a rather distracted morality. To put it in some way, Manuel was involved with organized crime, so his death was nothing more than the result and consequence of his dangerous link. Cesar Gomez, Camila's uncle, confirmed it in one of the interviews he shared with the media. They have a history of being dedicated to that. The following years then passed as usual. The children playing in the alley, so characteristic of the La Florida neighborhood, always being watched by their parents, who naturally greeted with kindness and said good morning. Camila Gomez Ortega lived in one of those alleys. She was a happy girl who had the love of her mother, her sisters who went to school. She had friends as well as many dreams to fulfill. Her father, for the time being, was in the United States, so his tragic and unexpected departure had put an end to that hope of seeing each other again. The man made numerous sacrifices, leaving his family for a better life. He would soon have to return to be present, unfortunately, at the funeral of one of his daughters. The Gomez Ortega family's home was located at the end of Cuesta Arriba Street. In fact, it was the last house from where the little girl would run out to meet her friends, especially Liz, as their bond had been strengthened for some time with endless afternoons full of games and fun moments. They were 2 years apart, however. That was no impediment to them spending so much time together. They understood each other, they cared for each other, and they protected each other. From time to time, they played at Camila's house. There, Margarita watched over them and prepared snacks for them to have for tea. That's why she quickly got the feeling that she could trust Liz's mother. For her part, Ana Rosa did not skimp on showing some aspects of her life on social networks, as if she had nothing to hide, as if she were an ordinary woman. Happy, loving with her children, responsible and very proud of having just become a grandmother.
February 2024 was about to end when suddenly a new person was added to her life, then known only as Lucho.
He seemed to be a good man with whom she had started a romantic relationship. Seemingly her life was going smoothly. A new family member, a new relationship. What more could Ana Rosa want? That's the question. Unfortunately, she desired money. She had a secret ambition that she wanted to satisfy at all costs. And it's not really known if everything that happened afterwards was planned with her new partner, or if she even informed her other children about the situation, or if she definitely acted alone and everything else happened as it went along. But well, the point is that as the Easter holidays were approaching, Camila's days were counting down to her imminent death. All the kids in the neighborhood were very excited about the arrival of the holidays. Some would have the opportunity to go out and explore new places, while others would simply take the days off to rest from school obligations. In that respect, both the Gomez family and the Diaz family agreed that they would have a peaceful holiday at home, sharing with loved ones very pleasantly. However, that didn't mean they wouldn't have fun, especially the girls who were just looking for any activity to have a good time. It all started then, on March 27th, 2024, that tragic day that was supposed to be fun, but instead turned deadly. Camila woke up in the morning with a lot of joy. With no school, no responsibilities, all she had left to think about was what she would play today, or with whom, whether she would go out on the street, whether she would invite a little friend to her house. There were many ways to have a good time during Holy Week, and she had no idea that a phone call was about to brighten her day to the fullest. Or well, that's what she thought. The person on the other end of the phone was none other than her best friend's mom. Yes, Ana Rosa had the perfect plan for the young girls, or rather, the children, to have fun. It was hot, they were on vacation, and Liz had been bought an inflatable pool. As soon as the youngest heard the incredible plan, she couldn't contain her excitement and asked her mother to please let her go. After all, it wouldn't be the first time, and what could possibly go wrong? They have been neighbors, and I just mentioned that they had complete trust in the girls, that they were very good friends, and that's why they felt comfortable leaving them to be there. Given the history of friendship and years of trust, Margarita had no objection to letting her daughter go. So, just before noon, Camila had breakfast with her mother in a hurry to get ready and leave to a place about 164 yards away from her home, where presumably Liz would be waiting for her to start the pool after noon. "Can I go now?" was probably the question the little girl asked her mother before crossing the door, and an affirmative answer gave her the permission she needed to leave her home, full of hopes and very happy. Camila ran towards the Diaz Aguilar's residence, never to return again. Camila walked out of the house that's behind me with this black gate. She was heading to the other house where she was going to play with her little friend and spend the day at this pool party they were organizing. We are going to follow the entire route the young girl took. It's a very short route, a very short path, perhaps no more than 164 yards to get to the house. Where this woman lived who is accused of taking Camila's life, that is the route. And here is where the security cameras allowed the location of the precise image in which this girl enters the house. These cameras that we are observing at this moment. As we can see, during the girl's journey, she doesn't even need to leave the neighborhood's alleys. In theory, it seems that she is safe, and like all the other times, she can go without adult supervision. So with all the confidence in the world, Margarita only says goodbye to the girl at the door of her house without having any idea of the nightmare that is coming. The next thing at the Ortega's house is to spend the afternoon like any other. Maybe they watch television, drink coffee, or enjoy a family moment. Thus, the hours go by so quickly that when they notice it's almost 4 in the afternoon, they're aware that the girl is not at home, but no one seems worried as she is probably having a great time with her friend. Even so, the lady of the house believes it's time to hear something from her little one. She has no intentions of picking her up so early, but somehow she wants to make sure she's doing well. So she picks up the phone to call Ana Rosa and is greatly surprised when she's told that the girl never arrived at the supposed house. At that moment, the woman is petrified, her blood drains from her face, and she immediately goes into panic. Without thinking twice, Mrs. Ortega rushes out to shout her daughter's name in the streets, asks for help from the neighbors, distributes the little girl's photo, and starts a kind of search campaign on social networks. In addition, a bulletin with the minor's details is spread throughout the city in hopes that someone can provide some relevant information. The first few hours pass filled with anguish, and suddenly they receive what appears to be the first indication of the reason for her disappearance. It's a message from alleged kidnappers asking for a ransom of 250,000 pesos. My sister notified me by phone. I was not in Taxco, and she told me that she couldn't find her, and that she was receiving messages asking for a ransom of 250,000 pesos. At the moment, loved ones and friends are finding out about the situation. Nobody knows anything. Margarita can't handle the anguish thinking about how she could get such a large amount of money. All that remains is to rely on the authorities. However, it seems they have no intention of moving quickly with the investigations. Odd, isn't it? But that's them. So far, how have the authorities acted with you? Have they provided support? It's very slow. Unfortunately, the worry of not gathering the money in its entirety and on time fades the next day with the worst discovery found among the undergrowth located next to the Taxco Cuernavaca highway. It's the lifeless body of a little girl with all the characteristics that match the search bulletin under the name of Camila Gomez Ortega. Everything seems to indicate that she was murdered, and her mother is immediately notified, who evidently breaks into tears as soon as she knows that her daughter has passed away. There is no governance. We are furious, and I believe that as a community we must defend ourselves. This is a watershed moment that society is no longer afraid. Naturally, a crime committed against a minor always awakens in the community the inevitable feeling of helplessness and shock, wanting to do justice and speaking out against the authorities who often do not do their job as they should or most of the time. This was exactly what caused Camila's case. However, everything escalated when the first clues of what really happened came out. Her killers were not strangers to the neighborhood, nor a stranger passing by who saw the opportunity to commit the atrocity of mistreating a minor. They were none other than lifelong neighbors, a woman, a mother, a grandmother, a widow, who due to her deceased husband was known to have a background in organized crime. That's right, from the one you already know, Ana Rosa Diaz, alias Alestrada. That woman who very familiarly invited the girl to her house for an afternoon at the pool, and also her recent partner whose link could be verified due to their content on social media. Both caught by security cameras in a rather suspicious position. The first thing that caught attention was Rosa's statement, who remember had been sure to say that Camila never showed up at her house. Obviously, all of this was a lie. Everything was exposed when the files were made public, showing the woman's address with quite acceptable clarity. The same address where the little girl happily arrived, very excited to see her friend. The curious thing was that she was seen entering but not leaving. That was the point at which the inhabitants of Taxco began to gather the courage they would need to administer justice with their own hands. This is Camila's final living image. The clock was striking 1 in the afternoon when she ran down the alley towards the house of the friend who had invited her to play in an inflatable pool. They were neighbors. Their moms knew each other. And this is precisely one of the video images that have gone around the nation. Seeing the last moments of life of an 8-year-old girl who innocently fell into the trap of her aggressors. Once Camila entered the house, she found no pool or anything that resembled a fun afternoon. On the other side of the door were Ana Rosa and her accomplices waiting. Only she knows what exactly was happening inside the house. For a few hours later, the owner of the house was caught again, leaving with a basket of dirty clothes in her hands, and behind her, a man with a black bag over his shoulders, whose contents would later be exposed as the lifeless body of Lani. The man's identity corresponded to that of Lucho, the woman's recent partner, and later known as Jose. It was he who, when cornered, could not avoid revealing the truth. He was the owner of the taxi into which he was seen getting in with his partner, the basket of dirty clothes, and the black bag that he put in the trunk of the car. Then he drove to the Taxco Cuernavaca highway to get rid of the evidence. Camila, according to the times recorded by the security cameras, would have been murdered just a few minutes after arriving at her friend's house. Her body had bruises. Fortunately, the taxi driver was placed under strict police surveillance once he gave the exact location of the body. Unknowingly, he had saved himself from the brutal beating that the townspeople would give to the woman who apparently had planned to make Camila's death look like a kidnapping. Thus, by the afternoon of March 28, the videos incriminating Jose and Ana Rosa had already gone viral on the internet, causing the fury of the inhabitants to reach the point of no return, especially after the authorities did not take the suspect into custody. It was at this point in the story that the shocking and brutal lynching originated. A crowd of people gathered outside the home of the crime scene. There were screams, stones, sticks, and a strong feeling of anger. Police units were also there. However, they could only be seen playing the role of spectators, useless spectators, as in front of them, the community easily broke through the door and the roof of the house to extract the three people. Among them were Rosa and her two sons, Axel Alejandro and Alfredo, aged 21 and 18 respectively, both allegedly also involved in the crime. The eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, impunity, society's exhaustion, the absence of authority, the lack of strategy and coordination in security, in which one of the alleged kidnappers died just as she was presented to the public ministry as a result of the blows and the evident negligence of the authority. On the other hand, the other two suspects, the sons of the main perpetrator, were seriously injured. However, they were rescued and taken to the hospital for immediate medical attention. Their wounds were mainly in the head and some punches in the body, of which there is also video, and I can't leave it to you because it's also brutal. It's also worth mentioning that from the altercation, the lives of little Liz and her other underage sister were safeguarded. In the end, they had nothing to do with it, and also a little dog. In fact, I'm remembering right now that despite being extremely neglected, extremely mistreated, it tried to save its owner from the beatings they were giving her, but in the end they took it away, and luckily they took care of it. What followed was not a decrease in violence. Even though the responsible people were already in custody or dead, the inhabitants continued to show their discontent through a march to demand justice for Camila. There were those who did it peacefully, I mean the marches, as well as those who also vandalized the streets, destroying things in their path, including two taxis, which were rendered unusable. This is the scene being shown live at this moment. This is the state of Plateros Avenue, which essentially divides the municipality of Taxco in two. This demonstration is blocking traffic in the area, so all traffic on this road has been diverted to alternate routes. As you can see, two public service taxis were vandalized during this demonstration. Meanwhile, the forensic examinations revealed that the cause of Camila's death was asphyxiation, mechanical and intentional asphyxiation by a third party, that is, strangulation, which, as we already know, occurred just a few minutes after the young girl entered her friend's house. Now, Mrs. Ortega could not remain silent about the fate of her daughter's murderer, because even though everything had been done so that she would pay for her crime, she would have preferred to see her alive and behind bars, serving a long sentence until the day of her death. She was there. It wasn't what I wanted. Also, for the person who is saying it wasn't what I wanted her alive. I wanted her alive so she could suffer the same amount of time that I'm going to suffer, but her rotting in jail for what she did to a little girl. As if that wasn't enough, the woman in the midst of her grief also had to endure being pointed out as guilty. This is due to statements from the very Secretary of Security of Taxco, Doroteo Eugenio Vasquez, who deliberately labeled Margarita as irresponsible for not doing a better job as a mother in taking care of and protecting the girl. With good reason, his words were used against him to the point that he found himself needing to step down from his position, leading to his imminent dismissal several days after such ill-advised statements, not to mention so pending. So far, the two children of Ana Rosa and the taxi driver known as Jose have been linked to the process for the femicide. Jose and Axel are currently serving preventive prison in the Cerezo de Iguala, while Alfredo continues to recover from the wounds. In the end, all that remains is to closely follow the investigation so that the trial date can be set and finally the sentence that will be given to these three inhumans. On the other hand, Camila's final farewell took place with an emotional funeral, which began with a peaceful and silent walk, with white balloons, farewell signs, where they asked for justice and moving words that I'm going to be leaving you here a piece of the video. A strong applause, tears, feelings of anger and helplessness were felt next to her small coffin. The case has not lost visibility so far, and we hope it continues to ignite social networks so that the pressure of public opinion exerts on the mobilization of the authorities to give the best resolution to the case. But in the end, tell me what you think of what they did to the people. You leave it to me in the comments.